Hey guys, I am Pixel Dan, and this is a review of the Masters of the Universe Revelation Mossman, part of the new Masterverse toy line. The brand new 7-inch scale collector-driven lineup from Mattel, with all the figures in this first wave being inspired by the upcoming Netflix animated series Revelation. I'm really excited about this particular one because the early images I've seen of Mossman have been one of my favorite redesigns for the cartoon, and I thought this looked like it was going to be a really fun action figure, so I'm pretty excited to get this guy outside of the packaging. But before we get to that, we'll start by looking at the box. This was an early review sample from the folks over at Mattel, so shout out to Mattel for allowing us to get a good look at the figure ahead of time. Now, it is worth noting, I do believe they sent me the international release because the Netflix logo up here does have the multilingual information on there, and that'll continue around to the back, as I'll show you in just a minute. The Masterverse packaging is very cool. It's got these great like hieroglyphics, this rune design up here that's got some fun little Easter eggs for longtime Masters of the Universe fans. And then when you rotate it around to the side of the box, we've got some gorgeous spine artwork of Mossman, and that continues around to the backside as well. Shout out to the illustrator Eamon O'Donoghue for the awesome artwork here. I love this one too. You can see like Skeletor and Beastman in the background, kind of like trudging through the swamp while Mossman watches them in camouflage. Pretty cool stuff there. Love seeing awesome artwork on Masters of the Universe packages. I think it's essential for the toy line. Down below that, we've got all 4 figures in the basic Wave 1, and this is what I was talking about with the multilingual text on the back. That's here instead of a bio. I think the US releases will have a bio for Mossman on there instead. So, we've seen the packaging. Let's go ahead and get this guy pulled out of the box and get a closer look at the action figure within. All right, we've got Mossman outside of the packaging. If I bring in the tape measure here, you can see the figure stands right at 7 inches tall. So scale-wise, he's the same size as He-Man and a little bit taller than Skeletor. And that's fine. I mean, you know, the original Mossman, even in the original series, I mean, they were all kind of the same height in the original show, but he's never been really depicted as a big hulking character, so the scale is totally fine. It's just kind of surprising because I expected him to be a little bit bigger just by looking at the design of this particular Mossman. And that's definitely where I want to start. This guy has been intriguing to me ever since we first found out he was going to be included. First of all, Mossman has never been a Wave 1 character. In fact, they haven't even gotten to Mossman in the Origins line yet. In the original toy line, he was a simple repaint of Beastman with some flock. You know, they flocked him so he was fuzzy. And every Mossman figure that's been out since has been flocked. So this is our first figure that is not flocked, but it's also our first figure that takes some pretty drastic differences to the overall style of the character here. When you first look at him, I will say he still looks like Mossman. If we start with the head looks like Mossman. In fact, it still has a bit of that Beastman vibe to it. You can see with kind of the beard-like look coming down on the bottom, the shape of the head, the pointy ears. He's got a bit of that classic Beastman look to him still. And he kind of looked like that in the original Filmation show, though he did look happier. He was a very friendly character. So this one does look like he's got a bit more of a mean streak going on there. Where he really changes up is down below that, because you can see that the design of him has really got this interesting mix of like the moss-like texture seen on his shoulders and his upper body there, his chest, but then it turns into a darker green on his abs and on his biceps. That same darker green can be seen on his thighs, where you can see his legs almost look like twisted vines, which is really cool. And then his legs basically look like mossy tree trunks. You can see they look like these brown tree trunks with some moss sort of growing on the insides of his calves there, and even on the front of the right leg. And then his feet even branch out to look like roots. His fingers are the same way. They look like roots that are sprouting out from the mossy palms of his hands there. And then he's got like these twisted vines wrapped all around his body, and even some leaves sprouting like up here on his shoulder and over here on his arm. It's really interesting and very different, but it looks cool. I kind of like it. It's really neat. I even like how he's got a belt that's styled a lot like the classic belt on the vintage He-Man figures, but it looks like it's carved out of wood. I mean, it's really neat to kind of see the little touches that Mattel put in here. I assume this is based on the way he looks in the show, but like, just looking at the designs on the action figure here, I think they did some pretty cool stuff on this. Now, I also believe that this is the one figure in this wave that was oversaw by Four Horsemen Toy Design. And if you're not familiar, Four Horsemen Toy Design were the guys who worked on all of the Masters of the Universe Classics line. They've been working on He-Man toys for well over a decade, longer than that, all the way back to 2002. So I guess 20 some years, which is crazy. So fans are very familiar with their work. Fans love seeing what the Four Horsemen have brought to Masters of the Universe. And honestly, I feel like it can be seen here. Like, you can see the Horseman touch in the crazy design here. So I don't know. I like it. It's different, but it's kind of neat. It is a bit Swamp Thingy. I'll throw that out there. I think it's very easy to make that connection. Mossman is kind of a Swamp Thing-like character. But yeah, it's really interesting to see just how different he is. But at the same time, he's still recognizable, I think. So as far as his articulation goes, he does still have that ball-like joint up here at the head. So, you can pop the head off. You can pop it back on. So his beard kind of rubs and everything. But, it still turns side to side pretty well. He does have those ball-like hinges at the shoulder. So the arms can go outwards, forwards, backwards. We got a swivel at the bicep. We've got the double joints at the elbow. Swivel at the wrist. Hinge at the wrist. The torso kind of rolls around in that mid cut there, as well as the swivel cut there just at the waist. The thighs are the same with those like ball joints where like they kind of have that click there. You can see like that ratchet where they click in and out of place to straighten them out, but they do go outwards and inwards pretty good. They work very good on this figure. You got the cut there at the thigh. You got the double joints at the knees, which I love. It almost looks like he's wearing like these mossy knee pads. He doesn't have a boot cut swivel, I guess, because he's not wearing boots, so he's lacking that articulation cut, but you can swivel the feet at the ankles, and they do hinge up and down. They don't really rock side to side, though, and also, because he's got these weird branching out, like roots for his feet, it does make posing his feet flat in some of the dynamic poses a little more difficult. So he's a bit trickier to pose up than some of the other figures in this line, but all the joints feel nice and tight, so I think it functions pretty well otherwise, and he still stands up well and is a nice looking figure. Now, as far as his accessories go, he really only comes with interchangeable parts. Right here, you can see on Mossman, I've got him with these open-fingered hands, but he does come with some extra pieces. So we can swap those out for some more relaxed hands, if you want to, and that can be done just by popping the hand out of socket. You can see it's a little peg there, and we can pop the new relaxed hands in there instead, where the fingers are just kind of straight down. And then he also has gripping hands. So we've got a pair of gripping hands as well. So that's 3 pairs of hands, which is very cool. However, I will say this, he doesn't have any weapons to put in the gripping hands. So I kind of wish he would have come with his club like he always has in previous action figure forms before. That would have been really nice. I wonder if it was a cut accessory or something, because maybe his deco cost a little bit more, so they cut an accessory. I guess if you want him to hold on to the power sword for He-Man, it's worth noting he gets a good tight grip on it, so he can hold it. Just sucks that he doesn't have an accessory of his own. The closest thing he has to an accessory is this extending tree branch vine-like hand attachment. So the way that works is it actually works as a hand. You just pop the hand out of socket. You can see it's on the same peg, and you can plug it in. Now, here's our issue. It does seem like it's a bit too heavy for the arm to even hold up. It's a neat looking accessory. It's like these twisted vines, like he's reaching, extending his hand out. He's got some Groot-like powers, I guess. But look at this, like the arm just flops down. No matter how we try to pose it, it is way too floppy. It's too heavy for the arm, but also that little peg on the wrist is way too small and not strong enough to actually hold this thing up. I mean, it is just way too wobbly. There's no way you're going to be able to pose this on the shelf with this. So it's a bummer because it feels a little useless. You might be able to do some cool stuff with photography if you can find a good way to prop it up, but otherwise it doesn't really pose in his hand. And it really looks, I mean, like it's basically hanging out of socket because it's just too heavy for this little bitty peg right here to hold. I actually am worried that peg's just going to bend and eventually snap if I were to leave it in there. All right, guys, it's comparison time. So there haven't been as many Mossman figures over the years as there have been with like He-Man and Skeletor, but I still wanted to start by putting all of them up on the shelf here together so you can see what they all look like lined up, starting all the way back with the original series release. Then there was the one from the 2003 toy line, as well as Masters of the Universe Classics. And we'll go ahead and get some solo shots of them side by side as well. So I mentioned that every version of Mossman that has ever been released before was flocked. So that's one area where this new one definitely stands out, but also with the design. The 2000 series one is really weird because he didn't look anything like this in the actual cartoon, but what Mattel did is they just repainted a Beastman. They followed suit of the vintage toy line, but Beastman was big and hulking in that line, so we ended up with a big hulking angry Mossman. It's actually kind of strange. But the Masters of the Universe Classics one is my personal favorite. They even gave him his own unique head sculpt for that line in addition to the Beastman head, which is the unique one is what you're seeing here, and I really like that side by side there. Now, I will say, I've always been a bit of a stickler about my flocking. Like, I want Panther to always be flocked. So you might think I'd say the same thing about Mossman, but I gotta be honest, I kind of like the interesting things they did with this particular Mossman. He's got all those different greens mixed in, which really gives him this interesting forest-like look, as if he's made of all this different plant life. So for this particular style, I think it works out pretty good that they didn't flock him. Now, it'd have been pretty cool. I would definitely have liked it if I got a flocked one, but I think I like what they did with the design here. I'm curious to see what everybody's going to think of this. I think you're either really going to like that he's something very unique, or maybe if you really love the old figure, you might be bummed out that he's such a departure. But I think the important thing is that they changed him from just a simple Beastman repaint to making him kind of his own unique look, and I think that works out really well. So I think this is one of the standouts from the first wave of Revelation figures in the Masterverse line. I got to give a very special thanks to the folks at Mattel for sending this guy over so we can get a good look at him outside of the packaging. The interesting thing is that this first wave of basic figures is first available at Walmart this summer, while Skelegod and Battlecat are first available at Target. I have no idea why they did that, but I think beginning September 1st, they're going to be available everywhere, including online stores, so you guys should hopefully be able just to pre-order these as long as you're patient. I think these will be available for everybody. Thank you guys so very much for watching this video, and until next time.
The Toys of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe is available for pre-order now. This official guidebook is published by Dark Horse Books and features over 750 pages of photos and information on your favorite He-Man and She-Ra action figures. And don't miss out on the exclusive bundle pack available for pre-order now from PowerCon. This bundle includes the official guide as well as an exclusive character guide supplement that you won't be able to buy anywhere else. Don't miss out. You have the power.